I just have always liked cars. I wanted to look at a way of integrating that passion into my work as a green architect. The upstairs siding is 104 car roofs that I cut out of the junkyard with a Sawzall, and then had my metalworker shear into squares, and then I laid them out kind of graphically using the colors of the cars themselves to make this kind of pattern. I was inspired by fish scales, and if you look at a fish, there are these glints of different shades of grays on many fish. The hardest part was picking the cars, because cars that wind up in junkyards are in pretty bad shape usually, and so not only was I selecting based on condition, no dents and as few nicks as possible, but also I wanted to pick a pretty narrow band of grays and silvers. And so I would go through and actually make a little map of the junkyard and then tick off where the cars were. And then I would go get my tools and go back and cut them out. And the most I ever got in a day was 16.
And so there are a lot of junked cars, like this is...
Thousands and thousands. And so one of the things we do with materials is we try to intercept them before they actually go into the waste stream, before they get recycled. The metal is melted back down. That requires more energy. So if we grab the materials before that happens, it's actually that much better for the environment. The glass awnings up there, those also came from the junkyard. One of the ways I came up with to use car parts was to make glass awnings. There's another one on the back as well. These are America's best-selling minivan side glass, Dodge Caravan, and there are a lot of them in the junkyards. They're the windows on the back on the side that open like that to ventilate the van. Actually, I have about 30 more of these in the dark tinted glass. One of the things we did is we tested different transparencies because there were like 2 or 3 different colors, and we finally decided the clear ones looked best and they were the hardest ones to find. So we had to kind of keep going back and getting like 2 or 3 at a time, whereas the tinted ones we could get 8 or 10 at a time. This side, the silver is all much lighter, so the palette of car roofs changes from side to side. And one of the reasons we put the lighter material on this side was because it'll reflect more. It's on the north side, so it'll bring more light into their house. It was fun playing with the different tones. We had to mock all that stuff up with scaffolding up there, and it was really hard to see through it and figure it all out. But I was happy when the scaffolding came down. Yeah. We did a lot of full-scale mock-ups to test that out and get that to work. These are several scale models, and this was, even though not the finished one, it's the last one.
Karl's been experimenting with the car parts in different ways.
Probably 10 years now?
At least 10 years.
Yeah,
like
12 years or so, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where the car parts are holding everything up, and there was, these are hood doors, and so, I mean, it's just a shed, so it's full of stuff, but this is the first time I played around with the Caravans. These are car trunks for the corners, so structurally they're really stiff because they're folded like that. They're just set in gravel in the ground, and that's holding all the weight up of everything. These are 2 car hoods. They're just screwed together. And that whole wall there is car hoods as well. But you can't see it because of all this stuff.
Great.
And then this is the door end of the shipping container. You can see the hardware. There's the cat. You can see the cat. You can see the hardware for the doors that we just kind of cut off and left. That's our studio. That's our office, our architecture office. It's a shipping container. It's a 40-foot refrigerated shipping container that we cut and then made into a T. Because it's a refrigerated unit, it's actually insulated.
One of the things that Karl and I are really interested in is the materials of construction, and that it really does make a difference what materials you use in a building.
The siding is poplar bark. The furniture industry in North Carolina uses a lot of poplar, and the bark is just a waste that they throw into the woods. And this company has figured out how to turn it into siding. It's actually a traditional mountain cabin siding material in the North Carolina mountains. You can see just big south and west windows and almost nothing on the north, which from a passive solar point of view really helps. Because directly to the south, right in here, this house is here. So that's why this chunk of south wall doesn't have windows on it. It really doesn't get much sun in the winter. But back here, we get a lot of afternoon winter sun, which helps charge the thermal mass. And in fact, the sun gets all the way back to the kitchen in the winter when the sun sets. It warms up the floor and the whole house. The plaster actually adds extra thickness and extra thermal mass. We chose a raw plaster finish, and we actually used thicker sheetrock to start with. So there's almost 50% more thermal mass in the walls than typically would be in a regular house. The floor is fly ash concrete, so for thermal mass and recycled content. We hardly use the heat at all. This whole thing opens, which is nice on warm summer days. That opens, and this opens. You can always ventilate the house. Just open these up and it's cool in a few minutes. So we don't want to cool it off too much though.
It's an interesting kind of illusion that you can create when you have a very small space. If you have proportionately bigger windows, it can really, especially if they have a view, it makes the space feel so much bigger.
The whole house is 1,140 square feet. This space is, it's like 700 square feet, this space, but it feels much bigger. It's plenty. I mean, our daughter's here too.
Do you like the house?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah.
Nice.
Not all of her friends have Carpart siding.
When they first see it, like when they're dropping me off or something, I tell their parents, look for the house that's different.
It's a very narrow, we were constrained on all sides. We had to have this width by city code and that width by city code. So the width of the house was defined by the building codes.
If you stand in the street, you can see that the building looks really small because it's foreshortened both vertically and sideways.
If you look at it relative to the other houses, it's really tiny. It's only 14 feet wide on the ends. And then the deck is only, I think, 11 feet wide. So
and because it slopes down also on the roof,
pitches forward and
it also makes the
height
seem much shorter.
Small on the outside, big on the inside. It's kind of like Doctor Who's TARDIS. He's got this little phone booth. He goes in, and then it's a giant space inside. So it's kind of,
Or like one of the Harry Potter tent,
Right,
the
you go in this little
to
tent, and
go
it's
to.
giant inside.
I think our next move will be Karl
And
really
this-
wants to build a house made out of crushed cars.
Yeah,
He's
like
really
stacked
wants to
like
do that.
bricks.
And I really want to do a straw bale shipping container straw bale structure.
I want to do a house also made out of a flipped over boat hull and an Airstream trailer and a mobile home and something else. Not sure what that would be. That kind of stuff.
And I really want a goat.
And we're definitely from Berkeley.